Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 206. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. You can find the podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts, and we are now doing this live on our YouTube channel. Started it several weeks ago. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you've got a Sunday night free, you can watch us live. If not, go back and watch the episode or just listen the old fashioned way. Subscribe to the podcast everywhere. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. So much stuff to get to, Pat. So many juicy little nuggets. The Athletic came out with an off-season report card. There was a trade. Rick Hahn's not a liar. There was an actual trade. Some projections. People are getting all their predictions in now, too. And FanDuel had something to say about win total. But all that and more. Let me bring in my co-host, dear friend, Mega Sox fan, known this gentleman for so many years. Pat Hester, hello, sir.
Hey, buddy. It's good to see you. And I got to do a quick shout out to Rod Dizzle. Rod, I love, he's like waiting for this all day.
I love it.
I've got a lot of, I tweeted him back. I feel
Yeah.
like I have a lot of pressure now on me to perform.
Sure.
And I don't really, failure already. So, yeah, a lot to get to today.
Yeah.
Looking forward to talking over the next hour about where this team is at, where they're going. I'm just excited to not talk about any kind of legal issues, anybody's health concerns. It's been a fairly quiet week, which is nice.
Yeah.
Just like Rick likes it. Nice and quiet, nothing going
Sleepy.
on. Don't want to do anything too crazy.
Yep.
But then he goes out and makes a trade. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah. So tickets, single game tickets went on sale just a couple days ago.
Oh, I didn't act fast enough. I'm sure I won't be able to get any.
You did not get any tickets. You did not gobble up any.
No. I mean, they made it seem like you had to go there. They were going fast. You can't wait to get them.
Yeah.
Because they've given us so much incentive to go out and buy and get excited.
Yeah, well, you got the 500 level bar.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that.
You've got a really interesting battle at second base between Romy Gonzalez and maybe Lenine Sosa. Perhaps Lurie Garcia jumps in. You've got a situation in right field where you might have Colas, who has limited experience, but wants it and will be given all opportunities to get it. You got Gavin Sheets. You could be seeing Gavin Sheets start the season in right field, or Jimenez, who might just run out there first and stand there with his arm crossed and just block right field from everybody. That's what I want to see.
What are the odds of him getting hurt before he gets out of the infield dirt?
What happens if that's how he gets injured this year?
Yeah.
Is he's trying to sprint to beat Colas or Sheets out to right field, and he injures his knee or his hamstring or something?
Yeah, the hamstring just snaps off the bone like a old piano.
Snaps off the bone like an old piano. Yeah, I mean, a lot to get to. I got some tickets. My son will turn 1 in season.
Okay.
And they're actually going to be home for his first birthday. So I got tickets. We're going to go to that. But I've got my season tickets.
Most parents throw like a nice first year birthday party. You're going to take them and tailgate, go to a Sox game.
Well, I think it's best to expose him to this like reality now. Like this is what you are going to be growing up into. You don't really have a choice, nor did I have a choice. Nor did my parents have a choice. This is how it is. And I'm going to videotape the whole thing. I'm going to ask for, a copy of the game, and he's going to watch it and he'll have a good, remembrance of whatever. It's going to be early in the season. So hopefully there's some urgency and the Sox are still in it, in the division.
Well, they're going to need urgency, Nick. And I know we're going to get into that eventually.
Yeah.
I've always been the guy that says, no, it's early. Let's not get too excited yet. Let's just pump the brakes. Let's, we got to ease into this like an old man getting into a hot tub. I have a completely different theory this year as we get into the season.
Yeah, you kind of teased this at the end of the last episode, and I think it ties into not only where FanDuel projected this team in terms of win totals, but some other blurbs that, everybody's getting their projections out right now. Everybody's getting predictions, and there'll be more that'll trickle in as spring training kicks off next week. Pitchers and catchers reporting next week already. And it's not going to be drastically different. Maybe where teams fall in the division, and there's going to be some folks aggressive, but everyone's looking for that bounce back team. Who's going to be the team that missed out on the fun last year? And the Sox are being regarded as that, even with the Clevenger thing. And by Clevenger thing, I mean the reality that he's not going to pitch for the White Sox this season. They still have the Sox, bullish on the Sox. To make a run at the AL Central. But you said, April and May are going to be very important. They're critical for this White Sox team. I want you to just, expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, this is how
I think it's a good. You're with it there on that.
This is how good of a podcaster I've become, Nick. I had my best thought last week after we stopped recording. This was in our post-show conversation.
Yeah.
And nobody could hear it. That's where, how far I've come along in the last 4 years. No, I said to you, I think the first 2 to 3 months of this season will determine the next 5 years of this baseball club, because quite honestly, you look at where they're ranked in terms of their system. They're 27, 28. I think it's 28th in all of baseball in their system. They have nothing. So if they get into a situation where they are not looking like they're going to contend. I mean, we're part of an ownership that did a white flag trade when we were in a race. I think it'd be in the realm of possibility to just say, it's time to go back into rebuild, which is scary to think. Like after this very short window that was here, that was mired in injuries. Is now we go revert back and we sell off assets and try and build it back up again because we've failed so miserably to draft and develop players. And when do we start pointing the finger at a guy like Chris Getz? People like him just get handed jobs with no real, what have you done? I know you're a player, but what have you really done to earn that kind of role? All he's done is he's producing a 28th best system. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything about their system and how to obviously draft players and scout players, but they've got a real issue on their hands because of their system. And the only way that they've proven to know how to rebuild it is by selling off every single asset that you have on your major league club.
So in 2015, the farm director was Nick Capra, and your scouting director was Douglas Lawman. Remember him? In 2016, which is when the great rebuild took place, of course, in the fall, farm director was still Capra, but then Nick Hostetler came in as your scouting director. And then in 2017, your farm director was Chris Getz, and Hostetler was still around. And Getz has stayed in that role until now. And in 2020, the scouting director switched to Mike Shirley. So, Getz has been around since 2017. Hostetler, who are you to blame for some of the horrible draft picks? I mean, we had high picks and there was some duds. And just the lack of the lack of urgency, to maybe I would also say take some of that talent, that young talent, before it was overexposed, and try to flip it for something that was major league ready. That could have been too big of an ask, and there's no exact science. Drafting is very difficult. I understand that. But there has been a problem for many, many years with this White Sox team. It seems like maybe are they on the right track? We had someone reach out and ask a question on Twitter of us, which we'll get to eventually, but it is maddening how this team operates. And, sometimes when, I don't necessarily, it's not like I don't care about the farm system. I do. And it's an important part of it, but it's gone so bad. And I've been so burned by some of the things that have happened over the years that I have little trust in these young prospects that are coming up. I'm cynical, maybe skeptical, jaded. I don't know what the term exactly is, but So I dismiss it. Yeah, okay. Keith Law said our farm system's 28th. I've heard from a lot of different folks that follow this religiously that it's pretty bad, and I would agree. We don't have a lot to offer. We don't have assets to trade with other teams. I mean, it's been bad for a while, but okay, Colas could be great. Montgomery could be, his numbers seem to be pretty favorable in the top 100, but what does that mean really? Like I'm at a point where wake me up when they're doing something at the big league level. Is that bad? I mean, is that?
No, it's not. And the first time I, as a fan, ever got caught up in our minor league system is when they actually made a direction and we're going to go into a rebuild.
Absolutely.
And they actually had players that we were interested in seeing. And when were they going to get up with the big club? And you were watching, you're trying to find YouTube highlights of Knights baseball and the other affiliates of, especially with Robert, what he was doing in the minor league system, what Eloy was doing. And it was interesting. And I guess, Nick, the thing I don't know, and again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm not an expert on many things. I'm certainly not an expert on the system or the people running the system, but it's interesting to me that, you rattle off the people that you just did. I don't know, again, where they came from and what their credentials are, but I almost look at it like, okay, look at what like NFL teams do when there's a hot coordinator. What system did they come from? Where did they, are they part of Andy Reid's system? Let's not take Belichick. Belichick's guys never ever panned out, but okay, this guy has come from this system, and even going back to like the old San Francisco days. Oh, this guy came from this, and all these guys coming off these coaching trees, right? I just wonder, why don't the Sox look at guys that come out of the Atlantas of the world or St. Louis's of the world that are ready for like that promotion, to bring them in and be your head of scouting or your head of your minor league system to help develop that? Look for the guys that have come from successful systems to promote those individuals into leadership roles where maybe they're blocked at where they're at, but they come from a really solid system where you go, wow, year after year, the Braves and the Cardinals and the Rays just churn out this young talent. Let's get somebody from that organization. Maybe that's at a middle tier level now that's ready to be promoted up. And let's bring somebody like that in to run our system and really get us on the right track. Or we need this guy from head of scouting from this organization because they've done it so well and they're kind of young, up and coming and looking for the next step in their career. I just wonder, again, I think it's an organizational issue with this, our philosophy of, well, Chris Getz was a nice little player for us, and let's just hire him. He seems like he could do the job. Or, Robin Ventura, we loved you when you were a player. Why don't you be our manager someday? I mean, the only time it's ever really worked is Ozzie, and they didn't even really want to hire him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. They revealed some of the farm system coaches, and if I'm not mistaken, Nicky Delmonico has got a coaching position.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Indeed,
a hitting position.
Yeah, you're hitting on a lot of things that I think folks are so over with. The nepotism, the insular way that the White Sox have worked. Of you're protected, you are not going to buck, the system, so to speak. So you are going to stay, and you've got a job for life. Thus, Williams and Hahn. And so many others that have been around forever. This offseason, there has been a little bit of movement. Okay. You're going outside of the system to bring in Grifol, which I can't say that is a hire from a successful team. Yes, they won the World Series. What was it? 2015. I wanted something a little bit more recent, but what if those candidates that come in from the Rays or where have you, and they listen to what's going on here, and they're like, I can't operate in this condition. My hands are tied in these so many ways, and I got to go through this channel to get that. And you're giving me how much money, and what's your farm system look like? Maybe they just don't want it. They're like, you know what? I'll wait a little bit longer. I'll be a bench coach, or I'll be a third base coach, and I'll wait to find an organization that's got their act together. I don't know. I'm just, how, it's just a hypothesis, but you got Castro from the Braves, and you've got Grifol bringing in his people from, the Kansas City Royals. And it sounds like Grifol is building some sort of environment where you got something to say. Let's talk about it. Communication is key. There isn't just one person that's going to be making decisions and you're going to be afraid to go, ask them, hey, is this okay? Can maybe we change the philosophy on this way we do things? Now this whole change of language thing, can that be achieved in a couple months? Has it already been started? I don't know. Or is he waiting for Camelback Ranch? Okay, gather around, everybody. Let me explain the language. Here's a handbook of, the terms we're going to be using in terms of, metrics for offense and defense and what have you. That's the stuff I'm looking forward to seeing. Did he create a team of rivals where they're all going to make each other stronger?
Well, that's can you achieve that in spring? I don't know, Nick. I mean, I think that we've seen, from what they've put out on social, he's reached out to players and had communication with them already. If he's a good enough salesman that you can buy into anything like that in very quickly. And I think just the change of voice will be enough for them right off the bat to, let's go and let's run through a wall for this guy. I guess my more concern is, in the levels below, because philosophies and mentalities have to be, from the A level up to your big league level. And it's the same message that guys hear every level on up, and it's got to be consistent and it's got to be a good one, right? If it's not a good, philosophy from the start, what the hell is it? It's not anything. It'd be consistent, but it could be consistently bad. Yeah. So that's where I worry about. You look at like the team that we're going to be fighting with, I would imagine, for this division, other than the Twins, is going to be the Guardians. The Guardians have had, and previously the Indians have had fantastic systems, and they brought up a lot of great players over the years. They just never have, spent a lot of money to supplement that with stars on their team. But they've had a lot of great players come through that system and flipped them for other things and made some great trades. And, they've done things on a lower budget than we have, but because their system has been always, and their development, not just because of the guys they draft, Nick, it's the guys that they bring in and develop. You could have a draft pick that maybe wasn't all, thought that highly of, but it's how you develop and bring them along. And that's where the proof is in the pudding there. Yeah. So, I that's what I look at a lot. Yeah. I'm excited to see what Grifol can do with these guys that are here today, but is it going to be like, if they are successful this year, Nick, is it going to be like I'll steal something from my buddy Sylvia. He always says it's like pop-up championships. It's like those Halloween spirit stores that show up and it's Halloween and everybody's there, and then all of a sudden it's gone, right? Because you can't sustain that. Nobody is buying Halloween costumes on November 1st. So, even if it does work this year, who's to say that we can continue to replenish the big league club with talent? Because there's nothing behind these guys right here at the top.
Well, you hit on it with creating a machine, where it's next man up. The message at the big league level trickles all the way down through the farm system. Everybody is teaching the same thing at every level. So when you do need to replace, there isn't a catch-up period of, oh, wow, we were doing it way different in Birmingham or in Kannapolis or wherever. It's all the same. And the players buy into it. There's no egos, which is difficult to say. There's, of course, going to be some egos, but the philosophy is like, we're all in this. This is the approach. It's preparedness. It's the culture. It's exposing another team's weaknesses that, boy, how many teams did that to us? And it wasn't difficult to do. It's like when it's hitting the outfield, run on every single outfielder's arm, because Robert was hurt half the time. And you had two guys that weren't outfielders playing in the corners. Now Grifol has talked about that. If we knew what we were getting out of the White Sox, if they were going to show up, and if they weren't, this is how we could take them down. Can he bring that spirit? and bring that message of this is what to look for. This is how we're going to game plan. In our meetings, this is what we're going to focus on. So you already have, what you're getting into when you step up to bat. You know what that pitcher's bringing. You know what you can do with what pitch. You have to be prepared. You have to have a game plan. So Scott Merkin, beat writer for the White Sox for a long, long time, writes for MLB.com. And he's been talking to Grifol lately. I'm sure there's going to be some article or an email blast coming out this week. And this is what Merkin said about Grifol. Grifol was asked if his offseason preparation and conversations led him to if conversations led him to one key player on the 2023 White Sox team, and if that player goes, the whole team goes. Grifol would not limit his answer to one, mentioning 7 or 8 players at that moment. Grifol said there are a lot of guys with a chip on their shoulder, a lot of guys that feel like last year wasn't the year that they were supposed to have. Me just mentioning 1 or 2, I don't think that would be accurate in my conversations with all these guys. These guys are pumped and ready to go. I'm excited about that. And I think that's kind of, why name just one player or 2 players? There are a lot that need to step it up this year. And why not you just call everybody out and say, you saw what happened. And even if you weren't on this ball club, you knew what happened to this team. And if you need a refresher, listen to Locked On White Sox, because this nut did a daily podcast every single day throughout the whole season. Listen to what happened. He'll catch you up to speed. Everybody should be playing with some urgency. I mean, again, it's words, but I like that early message.
I love that guy on Locked On Sox. He is, first of all, he's damn sexy. Second of all, he's very knowledgeable. Looks and sounds like he drinks a lot of coffee. But you know what? I think, if you asked me if I'm the manager of this team, and I get where you're coming from, it's like, there's a lot of people that have to step up and turn it around. I'm looking right at my shortstop. I'm looking right at Tim Anderson, because I feel like you and I've talked a lot. It used to be Jose Abreu was the leader, and as Tim went, we went. He was the straw that stirred the drink, is what we'd always say. I think Tim Anderson needs to take more of a leadership type role this year. And there was something going on with him. It was just, aside from just being injured, and he still put up some decent numbers last year when he was available, but there was something about him that was lacking in terms of his demeanor or the way he showed up every day. It just looked like he wasn't enjoying himself out on the field at all. It looked like it was like, I'm pissed and I'm just doing this out of spite. I have to be there out of spite for whatever reason.
Do you think everything's kind of weighing on him a little bit?
I
things
think
that have snowballed and, I don't want to say he's becoming or, definitely a face of the franchise, but starting to become a bigger voice in all of MLB, and heavy is the head that wears the crown. And that's a new role for him. And it maybe just, it all piled on.
Yeah, it very well could have. But I'm looking for him to be a different guy this year. I'm looking for him to bring a little of that swagger back, but also bring a little of that leadership, to the team. And you're going to follow me, and I don't want to talk bad about Jose Abreu, but again, it's really hard for me to say he was a great leader because it didn't have anybody following him. It didn't seem like. It was, I'm going to lead by example, and he put it all out there, and that was fantastic. But when you turn around, leaders have to have people following them, and it didn't seem like he had anybody following him. And I also am not a huge fan of he wouldn't talk to the media. He was a language barrier type thing. I think your leaders have to step up and be in front of the cameras and be, kind of talk for the team. And I don't think he did that very well. So we need someone to be a player leader in the clubhouse, in front of the media. And that's what I'm looking for out of Tim Anderson.
Jose Abreu had the Teddy Roosevelt situation going on. Speak softly, carry a big stick. I think he did his work in the background, man. I just don't think we saw it. I think he was mentors and father figures and leaders to guys like Jimenez and Moncada, and he was going to be sorely missed. I'm looking to find who's going to be the leader for Oscar Colas if he makes this team and he's your starting right fielder when he's slumping, because you know he is, and when he's struggling, and even if he's successful. How is, to navigate the limelight, like we saw what happened with Yermin Mercedes, and that's not a good example, I know, but it's a recent moment where you saw somebody that kind of came on the scene, had some instant success, kind of ate it all up, started shaving, Yerminator into the side of his head, and some things, went wrong, and a lot of people played roles into it, but he was never the same.
Yeah.
And we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. It seemed like he, was dealing with some emotional stuff as well. Who's going to be there for Oscar Colas, when he has his highs and his lows? Who's going to keep him on the level? But yeah, Tim Anderson, if he wants that role, some people don't want that role. Some people don't want to be the vocal leader. They're like, that's not me. That's not my thing. I don't know who that's going to be if it's not Tim Anderson. I mean, there's some candidates out there. There's some veterans out there. Yasmani Grandal.
You know what though?
Lucas
That's an
Giolito. Lance Lynn.
I don't know if you can have a pitcher be your leader of your clubhouse. I do like Yaz because of the position that he plays, but you also have to be available and you have to be producing. I think it's hard to be a leader and you suck, right? If you're batting 200 and your warning track power again, which I don't believe that's going to be him this year. I have a lot of hope in Yasmani Grandal that he's maybe this year will work out for him, but
maybe Andrew Vaughn. Maybe Andrew Vaughn just becomes everything we want him to and more. And he just
you just want him to be Paul Konerko 2.0 is all you want.
I do. If he shows up with a goatee, I will be very happy.
I don't know if he could grow good. No.
He might not be able to grow facial hair, but if he could just
he doesn't have any eyebrows. How's he going to grow a goatee?
I know he's already kind of behind the eight ball. Who knows? Maybe he got onto some program in the off season that we don't know about.
What kind of a program do you get on? What is the program for growing?
You watch commercials. There's so many different supplements and pills and vitamins you can take to advance hair growth and do all these different things. There's probably some creams or balms that only people in the know with money can obtain these things.
On a side note, did you know I was talking to not from personal use, but I was talking to a hair restoration place, and they told me that I think it was 20% of their clients are for beards and mustaches.
Really?
Yeah.
Could I donate mustache follicles?
You may be able, yeah. Why don't you just start dropping them on the doorstep? See what they think.
That could be looked at in a different way. I think I'd have to label it for sure.
You might have to at least label it. That would be strange.
Yeah, it's leadership is a funny thing. Who was the leader in 2005? There was a collection maybe. Paul was a quiet guy. AJ, backed it up on the field. You didn't have somebody like pounding their chest, like, this is what our mission is, and this is how we're going to play, and we're going to bounce back. It was Ozzie. Ozzie took the pressure off of everybody.
I think Ozzie, he was overflowing with who he was and what he was doing. I don't think he had to have too much in terms of the players knew their role. It's like he's gonna deflect for us, and he made it really easy on them to just go out there and play. So, but there's not too many Ozzie Guillen managers out there.
Yeah, there isn't. So we'll figure that out. Though that's something that might just emerge. Maybe it's just they're going to bond over this chip on their shoulder that we keep hearing about. This last year was a disappointment. Last year was disgusting. Last year was a mistake. We are better than that. Like, we are going to earn back your trust and everything. FanDuel has got this team winning 83.5 games. I think that is terribly low. You also kind of had some similar feelings, I think, in that category of maybe a couple shades low.
I think it is low. And again, I know for the majority of this winter, I've been Debbie Downer, but I still like, I'll say this. At this time last year, with just about the exact same team, minus Jose Abreu, we were talking about how many games would we win this division by? How many wins would we have? And it was in the mid 90s. And we're excited. How many home runs we're going to see from Robert and Eloy and all this kind of stuff. And we were kind of just drunk on White Sox, propaganda. And you fast forward, and again, we saw what happened last year. I've bought into not like everybody's going to return to form and be all-stars and start their Hall of Fame careers. But I would like to believe that not everybody's going to have catastrophic long-term injuries all at the same time. And I would like to think that these players that individually we've been so excited to see, that when they finally actually get to play together for more than 9 games in a season, that it will produce more than what we saw last year. I'm serious. It wasn't that's a stat between the
small amount. I don't know if it was.
I think it was 9 games between what we saw. Well, the games that Robert, Eloy, Moncada, Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Yasmani Grandal, like I think it was like 7 guys, like your best 7 players playing in the lineup at the same time. It was like 9 games. So I'd like to believe that we'll see, the majority of our starters play together for more than 9 games this year. And I'd like to believe that's better than 2 more wins than we had last year.
And I'm with you on that thinking. If you read, which I read a ton, as I know a lot of other Sox fans do, especially in the offseason, like I get curious about what other people are saying about the Sox. And they don't say a lot, nationally. But and I take a good article and I live by that good article, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, someone's got the Sox winning the division. You hang it up and like, that's how it's going to go. And I dismiss the negative articles like that didn't even exist. But there's a lot of stuff out there right now that, Sox can be the bounce back team. And it is shocking how many pundits are saying the Pedro Grifol hire alone puts this team, 2-3 wins better than what they were last year. And some go as far as saying it's not necessarily that Grifol has been put in the manager's seat. It's that La Russa was out. They finally got him out, and that's always interesting to me, how other people throughout the baseball world saw what was going on. Like, what in the world are you doing over there on the south side of Chicago? But anyway, 83.5, I think, is low. You put the Grifol higher. You've got Benintendi. Actually, we've got a left fielder, playing left field that I think he can return. Hopefully that hand gets healthy. Eloy Jimenez is going to be your DH unless he really fights this thing.
Unless he fights somebody coming out of the dugout,
unless I hear about some sort of like American Gladiator, thing that's happening at Camelback Ranch, a joust, or he challenges somebody to something.
I'd like Gene Honda to be doing the lineups, and then he just rustles the mic away from Gene.
And I want him to run out like Ultimate Warrior used to run out. Oh. When the fireworks go off, and it's like thunder, and he just sprints, right? He jumps the railing in the clubhouse, in the dugout, I'm sorry, and he just sprints for right field, and just is bouncing off the net like a maniac. And, and if he's healthy after that whole thing, I'm like, you know what? You play out there, man. You
go
just
ahead.
Prove that you get the knees good. Everything else is good.
You got tassels hanging from your biceps. You got war paint on. I guess you're ready to play.
He's just shaking the net, Warrior would shake the ropes. I would like to see that. I think that would bring in tickets. You want to sell some tickets?
Oh yeah.
You've got an ultimate madman out in right field. Come on out, sit in that area. Fill up that Miller Lite Landing.
By the way, what do they ever have a wrestling night? I think a wrestling night would go over big on the South Side.
if they brought a ring in.
No. I'm just saying, like,
Oh,
they have Polish night. They have,
yeah.
all kinds of night.
Yeah.
Elvis night's not happening, right? Is that not
No,
happening?
Elvis is happening. Why would it not be happening?
Okay. Oh, you tweeted about Elvis. Elvis Andres. You're tweeting about Elvis.
Yeah.
Night. So that's Brooks Boyer's department. I don't want to give him
a wrestling night. I could see that. Celebrate the entire decade.
Like that'd be a cool bobblehead of some sort. Like who's donning like the Andre the Giant, like unitard.
Lance Lynn. I think Lance Lynn would have.
Yes. And then he comes into pitch and he gets real serious and he takes the strap off, just like Andre did. It's like, oh, Andre's really upset now. He took the strap off.
Yeah. I would love for Major League Baseball to say, you know what, folks, I know I limited everybody to 4 jerseys, but now there's going to be one magical night where everybody could dress up like an old wrestler. And you pick what game you want that to be. We're going to get real laxed on the rules. It's like we're really strict most of the time, but there's one surprise night, and you don't even have to tell your opposing team. You just all run out, and that's maybe when Jimenez does his warrior
and
run.
You can bring the props, so you have a bag with a python in it.
Oh, gosh.
You have like
Brutus with the big shears.
Sure. Somebody with a 2x4.
Yeah,
that's
how you're going to bring in people. That's absolutely how you're going to bring in people and sell tickets. I'll be there on opening day. I got a handful of games, and hopefully, are you making opening day? Can you make opening day?
Oh, I'll be there on opening day. There's no doubt about it.
I was worried about that, brother. That would be I don't know. We'll see if we can get that right. Maybe it's a write-in thing. Maybe we all just have to put our voices together and just petition the White Sox.
There's a lot of wrestling love on White Sox Twitter. I know that it would go off really well.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. So with 83.5 though, and we talked about all these like positive things that could move the needle. What's the effect of losing Abreu? What's the effect of losing Cueto? You have to make up for some of that, don't you?
Let's look at Cueto. He was fantastic, in spots for us last year, and he was also victim to some really horrendous defense, as a lot of our pitchers have been.
No surprise
over the years. But when we brought him in, it's like it's this lightning in a bottle type of move that we always try as White Sox, and it worked out in this case. But I don't think any of us were really looking at Cueto at his age and his point in his career like this is really going to change anything around. It was like we need somebody because Lynn was down with the knee injury. So I'm okay letting guys go because eventually Father Time is undefeated, and eventually it's just going to go to the point where it's not going to be salvageable. So it would have been a nice to have, I guess. I wouldn't have raged against the machine, but losing Johnny Cueto doesn't really, I'm not really that upset about it. Knowing
what you know now about Clevenger.
Well, knowing what I know now, yes, I would definitely like want it back. But at the time when they let him, when they didn't bring him back, it's like, okay, I can get that. It was a move they made out of a need. Nobody else wanted. They picked him off the scrap heap. Nobody in baseball wanted this guy. They could have had him. It was $400,000 minor league contract, I think it was.
Yeah.
So again, he may pitch wonderfully and be great, and that I'd be happy for him if he would. He was fantastic. But at the time when they let him go, I could understand. It's like, okay, well, the law of averages say that this guy's not going to make it much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Abreu. Again, I don't want to say like I'm a Jose Abreu hater.
This is all shocking to me. All the stuff that you're just coming out with now of how anti Jose Abreu you've been all these years. And now you're finally like able to release it. This is like a therapy session.
Anti Jose Abreu. I'm not anti Jose Abreu. He is part of a long, long legacy of Hall of Fame play and better than league average play at first base. We've had some fantastic first basemen, a couple of them with statues in our ballpark, and Jose will probably and rightfully so have one too at some point down the road, I would imagine. But again, considering where he's at in his career and his age, how much longer is he going to be able to sustain it? I don't know. He has got a lot of wear and tear on that body. I mean, he put it all out there, and I don't know what he really has left in the tank. We already saw the power numbers dip way down, to points where we really are not accustomed to seeing it. 14, I think it was. And that was really alarming. Is that going to come back for him? Now he's going to have a short porch in left field in Houston. Yeah. So maybe it will. And maybe being on a better team where he doesn't have to be the guy that puts everybody on his back.
Yeah.
He'll be in a different spot and maybe produce. But it's always that, I'd rather be early to the party than late, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah.
Again, I don't want him to fail. I hope he does great for Houston, except when it's against us. But letting Jose Abreu go, I don't have a problem with that. But
they made that choice a long time ago.
Yeah. But I'm thinking in my mind when that was happening, okay, whatever you're saving on Jose Abreu, now you can put that into something else. And they never did anything. So at this point, knowing what I know now, would I rather have Jose Abreu back, knowing that they didn't do diddly poo in the offseason? Yeah, I'd like to have him back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that
I know what you mean. If you've got time, folks, and maybe you don't. It's getting busy. February, you're getting back to your normal schedule. It's post-holiday. But if you've got moments and you're like, I just want to entertain myself, just Google, Rick Hahn off-season needs. And go through some of his statements from 2019, 2020, 2021, and this past offseason, the winter meetings in early December. Oh, my goodness. It's fascinating to match up his comments. They're almost identical. That he's just saying the same thing. The same needs are going to be we're going to try to fill. I pulled a quote from this past year's winter meetings, early December. NBC Sports Chicago had the article, and just listen, just pick out if you see a pattern here with what Hahn is saying, because we're going to get to the big trade that finally was orchestrated, the big trade that finally went down this past week. So this is what Hahn was saying in early December 2022 winter meetings. A year ago, we were coming off a division championship. We were wildly prognosticated to win the division going away. So a blockbuster roster-shaking move was probably a little less on the agenda. This year, I think we have to be open-minded. Given the way we performed in 22, does it mean that what's going to happen? Not necessarily, but we at least have to be open-minded to something like that. But again, it's a matter of being open-minded, and we know where we sit in terms of the 23 team, in terms of our competitiveness and competitive cycle, and what our goals are, and how we are pot committed in a few areas. We're going to remain open-minded about ways to get better. That was our fearless leader this past December, talking about the year that we should be very well be competing for a pennant, Pat. And what you just heard, I trust you folks. If you go back and you just want to look at some other comments that Hahn had in November, December of previous years, it's the same BS. Looking for a DH, looking to see if we could figure out second base. We have internal options, but we're always going to try to get better. It's the Hahn speak. It's a retrospective. If you have time, check it out. So did the Sox get better this past week? The White Sox acquired right-hander Franklin German from the Boston Red Sox in exchange for righty Theo Dellinger. Both teams have announced the trade, and the White Sox also announced that right-hander Jason Billus was designated for assignment to create roster space. Who? I mean, that was the big move, Pat.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who won the trade. I think we start breaking that down. Which Sox won the trade? Okay. I mean, what? That's what you got for me, huh? That's those are the big, the trades that are going to make this team better. When it's just adding depth. but
which you have to right now.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm good with adding. You always need depth, but it seems to me that there's other glaring issues that we have, and going back to that quote about being open-minded. Why wouldn't you be open-minded to do, but actually have action too? Like there's one thing to say about being open-minded to things. That doesn't mean that you're going to have any action against anything. It just means you're just sitting there and looking around and going, I'd be open-minded. Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah, we could do that. But but the proof is in the pudding, Nick. You have to actually produce something.
Yeah, and you're famous. You note this quite often. What Han will say, and it's always about we're waiting to see how the market, develops or evolves or whatever. Because the Sox will refuse to set the market, and that's what it has felt like this off season. Of just waiting around, just waiting for other teams to kind of make sure that they get what they need, and then we'll try to figure out something. And I think the writing's on the wall with Clevenger. I don't think he's going to pitch for the Sox this season or probably ever. And they're trying to figure out, okay, is Davis Martin good to be my fifth? Is it Sean Burke? Thompson's in the mix. They seem to be over the last week or so picking up just little like scraps over here, and there's got to be some folks that are going to need to pitch in Charlotte, and maybe there's some competition in Camelback Ranch for maybe a fifth, a sixth, the long relief guy. It's never a bad idea to get more pitching, but these don't excite anybody.
No.
They don't move. You asked me last week, with tickets about to go on sale. Oh, are they going to do anything to really get fans excited? I mean, this obviously wasn't it.
Yeah. Well, they got a nice hype video out that they put. That was good. But it's interesting, Nick. I don't know. I would like to dive into the question, if we could, that we got from Brian, I think it was, who sent us a message on Twitter, because he had an interesting thought about the philosophy of this team and where it's at and where we're going. And I want to pay that off if we could. So it would set that up for me, because it was interesting, and I get where he's going, and I think I have my thoughts gathered about it.
I think, we kind of hit on it a little bit, talking about just a philosophical change with this team and how they develop, how they acquire. And here's the question, really. The White Sox, will have a problem competing with the Mets, Yankees, Dodgers financially. Of course, we all know that. So why not have the White Sox go after players who are blocked due to long-term contracts that were handed out the past few seasons? Seager, Simeon, and Texas are under contract for another 9 years. So why not trade for Rangers' top shortstop and second base prospects in order to bolster the White Sox minor league system? And that was from Brian. Appreciate the question, Brian.
I guess to answer the question, again, I'm not going to pretend to know everything about everybody else's, farm systems and how good guys are. But I would imagine, one, if teams like Texas are willing to spend that kind of money on players, that they don't really have anything in their system that's going to be ready to go. Because even though these teams are spending tons of money outside of us, the Rangers and the Padres of the world, I would think that if they thought there was a ready-made star in their system, they wouldn't go out and spend in free agency for guys that are maybe at the peak and will be declining on their careers sooner rather than later. That's what I'd like to believe. Two, to make a trade for top prospects, you also have to be able to give up something in return. And I would imagine the Sox just don't nearly have enough to go out and get top prospects off of most teams' clubs. And that's why you see them doing deals with the Red Sox for, a no name for a no name, right? I mean, these top prospects are not going to come cheap. And what are you going to do to get them? I don't really know. Those are the types of deals, I guess, you would make or look to make at the deadline. Right. If you are looking at top prospects and other, like for this example, the Rangers, and they maybe have a top shortstop or second base prospect. If the Sox are not in contention, that's where you go, okay, I'm packaging up. You may have a need in center field. I'm packaging up Luis Robert, and I want this prospect and whatever else in return. You need a DH. Well, we've got DHs, so I'll do that and trade for this. But again, you're probably not getting top prospects off of any team with the talent that we can give back. With again, you're going to be in a situation to do that if you're not contending this year.
Yeah, I've often felt like the Sox do overvalue, their guys, which I know a lot of teams do, but to a point of, they almost don't want to part with them.
Yeah.
When you got to give something up, and a guy that I just still like, what is happening with Jake Berger? Where is Jake Berger going to fit on this team? And if he's not going to get a real shot, why have you been sticking around with Jake Berger? He just seems to be jammed up in all different kind of areas. He's got a bat, but I don't know if we trust his glove very much or his range at second. But, do you take the bat and sacrifice defense with one of the worst defensive teams last year? I think you have to prioritize defense right now.
Yeah,
you absolutely have to.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Nick. And that's where the Sox are just not very, they seem to be very lazy with a lot of the things they do with the way they manage the offseason with the major league club, with the way that they look at players in their minor league system. And in fact, and maybe it's because they have, buyer's remorse for some things. They've been fleeced in the past, and it's like, well, we can't release this guy because he's one of the better guys in our system. And the last time we let one of the best players in our system go, it really hurt us.
Well, then get folks that are better at, analyzing that stuff,
again,
and those minds are out there. And that's just but those teams know what they have. They're not going to release those executives that, those scouts, though. It's a whole mess. And, I don't know when it's actually going to get better, if the whole kingdom has to fall and then it has to be built up with new people everywhere, or if somehow it can be built from within. This year will be telling because of, it being the first time that we went outside of the organization to get a manager and allowing him to handpick, not all of his coaching staff, but most of his coaches. The offseason hasn't been good for the White Sox. And this past week, The Athletic came out with a report card. James Fegan had the big write-up for the White Sox, understandably. And of all of the major league clubs, the Sox received an F. They were the only ones to receive an F. It was a brilliant piece of writing by James Fegan. I mean, he just gave it to the organization, I thought. And I thought that was that's tough to do because you're going to have to be in these rooms with these folks, trying to get interviews, trying to ask questions. You're going to see these people on a regular basis, and to put it out the way he did, I thought it was refreshing. Your thoughts on the Sox receiving an F by The Athletic?
How could I forget that? I started the show by saying nothing bad came out this week, and I forgot about the fact that we received an F for our offseason. I mean, he's spot on. I mean, there was little to nothing done, and there's still holes on the team. So I can't disagree with them, right? I just hope that those types of things. I don't know that the players really care about offseason moves or not, but anything that you can use as motivation or billboard material type of thing, plaster up there the way that we were mocked by the Guardians. That's got to be up in the clubhouse. And I don't care if it's meatball or not. However, you've got to motivate yourselves. Nobody believes in us. I mean, that's a battle cry for so many teams all the time. That's the kind of stuff you've got to use. Right.
Yeah.
That's maybe why Grafal says that this team is playing with a chip on its shoulder. Maybe the players look at we've got what we need here. The front office didn't need to do too much because it was on us that we didn't perform last year, and we've got enough here. And everybody else can say they got an F, but we believe that there wasn't they didn't need to add anything. So we've got enough. Our team is on the field. So it'll be interesting. I can't disagree with them because, again, we go into every offseason hoping for, improvements. And really, we would like to be sitting here going, there's like we were last year. There should be no doubt that this team is going to run away and hide with this division. And we're in. On the other hand, we're left with a lot of questions, and they'll be answered soon. But I don't know. I commend James Fingen for what he wrote and what he said and what he put out there, and it's his opinion, and he could be proven wrong ultimately.
Yeah, it hasn't been good, and I think you talk to a lot of folks, that follow baseball throughout the country. You don't have to be piped in locally. This team is just not answered yet again, some of the glaring issues that they have. And when you look at the bigger picture as a Sox fan, you're like, how did we get here? How are we still trying to figure out some of these things entering the 2023 season? Like, where were the multiple, division championships? Where were, just getting to the ALCS, year after year, I've to a fault, I have poked fun at Cubs fans and said, man, you got to one World Series. Yeah, you won the World Series, but you got to one World Series with that talented team that you had. I mean, superstars. You should have been going to 2 or 3 World Series. Maybe you should have had another World Series title. Boy, I mean, we're sitting on 1 division title and 2 playoff wins.
Yeah.
It's pretty disappointing.
Well,
It's
it is
gross,
disappointing,
really.
and it goes back to, again, the organization that you have, and the organization that you have isn't strong enough from top to bottom. And I'm talking going all the way to the bottom in your minor league system and whatever else you're scouting and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to look too far, to see what a model franchise looks like in the Houston Astros. We'll see them on opening day, and they're the defending champions. All they've done is go to World Series. They've won multiple World Series, whether they cheated or not to win the World Series. It is what it is. They've let guys go. They've replaced them with other guys. They've got a strong system, and they just keep feeding the beast year after year.
Yeah.
And they went through years of 100+ loss seasons and rebuilt their system, but they've sustained it, Nick. That's the difference. Yep. We have not been able to sustain it to continue to feed the beast, to bring the talent in, and then just add the pieces you need here and there. And that's what you need to look at.
And some of their top picks, when they were bad, when they were really bad, they've produced for them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our top picks, it just hasn't gone right. That's where we're really hoping Andrew Vaughn works out just to salvage some of that. From when we had top picks because of those painful years. So yeah, that was troubling to see, but I think it was very accurate. So I did give you a homework assignment last week about just maybe finding positives. Was that it? Do you have anything going into this week? Anything that we can hang on to with your life as a Sox fan?
Well, you're not going to find it from anything you've read or heard about this offseason. This offseason's been pretty bleak in terms of trying to find positives. But I would cling to. I'm still very high on Yasmani Grandal in terms of his rehabilitation and coming back stronger. And again, whether it is what it is, Nick. Let's just put it that way. He's in a contract year. He's going to want to try and make another big payday for himself before he's out of this game. So I think you couple all that together. I'm really high on what Yasmani Grandal is going to produce for us this year. So that's going to be a positive. And I like what I'm hearing for the most part from Pedro Grifol. It seems like he is excited about this position that he's in. I think he's chomping at the bit to show what he can do as a manager. I agree 100% with whoever says that, just getting TLR out of the bench spot is going to help this team at least 2 extra wins. And I just, he could prove us wrong, but he's going to make mistakes. Obviously, he's going to make pitching moves that don't work out, and we're going to question it. but I would just like to believe that he's going to know the rules. He's going to know, not to do certain things, like, walk a guy on 2 strikes multiple times and have it not work out for you multiple times. Those are the things, like, I don't think we're going to have head scratching moments with Pedro Grifol. Like, what in God's name are you thinking? We will question him and we'll say, that didn't seem right to do that here. I wouldn't have brought him in this situation on, maybe he wasn't rested enough to do this, or yada, yada, yada. But I'd like to believe that, Pedro Grifol is going to be a guy that knows what the hell he's doing, and be present at all the games.
Yeah.
Is that positive enough?
That's setting the bar low, but it is very reassuring. I think you're right. It's the preparedness. It's trying to get this team to play with urgency in April and May, like we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Because to your point, if this team goes bad, April and May, early June, then it really is, we're going down a path that could be reminiscent of 2016. Not the same, but reminiscent, and nobody wants that. Boy, would that be just a gut punch. And we have tried to weather so many gut punches as White Sox fans. I'm trying to believe that, he can only do so much, Grifol. These players have to buy into it, and we have to see their potential. They got to stay on the field. I need to see Jimenez and Robert playing 135, 140 games. But there is some silver linings. There is some excitement, but it's a big if, and that's what we're hanging on to right now. Is pitchers and catchers report in a week, and it's exciting. We're here on the doorstep of spring training, Pat.
Yep, you're going to be out there giving your full report. I can't wait to hear from you when you go. And we're going to have baseball this month, Nick. There will be a game
February
25th.
Yeah, February 25th is the first game against the Padres, and it is exciting. It's you're without it, and this is our team, live or die. This is what we have to deal with, and I just hope they, until they can prove me wrong here, I'm trying to hold on to the health and return to a custom level. So, Pat, always a pleasure, buddy, talking White Sox with you, my friend.
Nick, it was a pleasure. And next week is our Super Bowl show. So we're gonna be going up against the Super Bowl. Hopefully our ratings are good. We'll see how it goes.
We might have to adjust the time on that.
Oh, really?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
We'll figure that out. But folks, thank you so much for joining us live on our YouTube channel, for the comments. And, if you didn't get to watch us live, you can go onto our YouTube channel and watch all the previous episodes. You, of course, can find this podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life as the season is starting up here very, very soon. You can find us on Twitter at GoodGuysTB. We've got a Facebook fan page. For Pat Hester, I'm Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.